Hello and welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed my first episode of Legends of the Martial Arts. This is going to be the first episode of Pioneers of the Martial Arts, because sometimes pioneers aren't legends and sometimes they are. Well, for the first pioneer I chose is going to be someone that if you are under the age, I'm going to say probably of 50, you've probably never heard of before. And if you did, you probably looked at a book of his and kind of laughed it off and tossed it aside. If you're over the age of 50 to probably 50 to 65, it is likely you heard of this person. And if you're over 65 in the martial arts in the United States, I'm sure you heard of this person. If you're in another part of the world, it's unlikely you heard of him. And that person is Bruce Tegner. Now, it's a little bit controversial because a lot of martial artists, especially in the karate world or the striking world, did not find Bruce to be a very good martial artist and kind of questioned his methods. However, there is no doubt that more in the grappling world, I think he was much more appreciated when I was coming up in the martial arts in the 70s. But why is he a pioneer and why is he important? Well, one, Bruce Tegner is important because he made or wrote all these martial art books in the 60s. He would write them all the way through, I think 82 is the last year that he published a book. And some of these books, especially in the karate world, you look at them now and you're kind of like, oh, the pictures are bad, the technique doesn't always look all that sharp. But it was a way of having a martial art book. In the 60s, most martial art books were a little expensive. We don't always realize, because of our purchasing power we have now, how much more fortunate we are now than we were in the 60s and 70s. And his books were easy to come by, especially for young teens like myself. By the time I encountered my first Bruce Tegner book, I had had 2 karate books, 3 if you count the Bruce Lee, the King of Kung Fu biography. That was it. Those are the only 3 I had. I had the martial arts catalog, and I also had a Bruce Lee's fighting method book, just one of them at that time. And when I was always looking for more books, and back then you had Walden's and Riley bookstores, and you had a lot of used bookstores. And at the time, you'd go to the school libraries or the public library, and there just wasn't many books on karate. And if there were, they really didn't show you much. But one person I discovered at Libby Junior High in the school library was a book on karate by Bruce Tegner. And I saw it and I got, oh, I got to get this. Now, I'll be candid, after so many martial art magazines and seeing people, martial art magazines back then, particularly Official Karate, used to have people perform their techniques. You see that, and then you would see the Bruce Tegner karate techniques, and he didn't look as sharp. He also had a lot of other people in those photos, though, besides himself, because his real expertise was in Judo and Jiu-Jitsu. At the age of 2, he started Judo. Both his parents, John and June, were Judo practitioners and Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. And so they brought him up in the grappling arts. But he was one of those people who thought you shouldn't just limit your self-defense to grappling. Even before Bruce Lee, Bruce Tegner was expressing through his books and his dialogues and his one TV show appearance with Ricky Nelson, Ozzie and Harriet. He was expressing and talking to people that you should be able to synchronize and make your martial arts eclectic if it becomes for the protection of self-defense. And so he was kind of controversial in the 60s. And it would leave, I remember running into people and telling me, hey, I got this Bruce Tegner book from the public library, and many martial artists that I knew at the dojo I was attending at the time were like, he's not very good. Well, he probably wasn't compared to their standards in karate. But the judo practitioners I would encounter occasionally thought he was a good judo practitioner, a good judoka. So that goes without saying. But he wrote books in the 60s on judo, savate, karate, self-defense. And then he had this work in 1978. And the first book I found was on the complete book of karate. And in 1978, I found at the school library, it was called Nerve Centers and Pressure Points. And it was a great book because even at that time, all this mythology about how you hit a certain person here, not only the Denmark, which I've made fun of, but also if you have a palm heel strike and you can shove the nose into the brain, and he breaks that myth. It's cartilage. It's not going to shove into the brain. It's not saying it won't kill somebody, but that's not what's happening. So he broke those things down. And well, today I look back, he got things wrong. But then again, I still see martial arts schools doing knife defense incorrectly this very day. And some of them are very good martial artists. So I think it goes without saying that his books were pioneering. Now, if you go back and you look at the footage of the Manchurian Candidate's fight scene, it is laughable by today's standards. But that's because we take it for granted. Think about somebody who's watching that movie 50, 60, 70 years ago, way before Bruce Lee, Billy Jack, even the show Kung Fu in the 70s, or even the 60s with the Green Hornet. You go back and you see this, and all of a sudden, this is something to be looked at. It is a step above the usual Western or fight scene where the person just rears their arm back and they rear it all the way back from Mississippi and punch into Canada. It's different, and it probably was actually quite an exciting fight scene for people at the time. You go and you see him on the Ozzy and Harriet as pictured here with Ricky Nelson, and you look at his technique, and yeah, he looks pretty horrible doing the kata. I'm not a great kata practitioner. I can do it better than he can. But then again, karate is not his main suit. But second, who knows what the director and what the others want him to do? I mean, they're filming a TV show, and there's not much karate or judo or anything else expressed in movies at the time. It was rare to see it. Matter of fact, I just picture that a child watching Ozzy and Harriet back then probably was quite amazed. I remember people, I wasn't, but I saw Kung Fu, it didn't amaze me. I now appreciate the series Kung Fu for the writing. It had some really great, sophisticated stories in there that had great moral tales and perspectives. But the martial arts scenes, I didn't even care for when I was 13, 14, 15. I didn't think they were all that good. But that's because I was used to Bruce Lee. But most people I encountered thought it was pretty good. That's why it lasted 3 seasons. In the first 2 seasons, it's a pretty popular show. So we have to kind of take ourselves out of it. And now we have this martial arts choreography with CGI and wires and everything else. I mean, even those things in the 70s look rudimentary. I think the fight scenes by Bruce Lee, but he left a legacy with all these books that he wrote and in the 60s on many different types of martial arts that people could get their hands on. And someone like me in junior high could get them in the school library. I have one here, Karate from Beginner to Black Belt. This one was one of his last works. It was written in 1981. And a lot of these pictures in here, yeah, sure. I'll just give you kind of a look at it. This is basically a primer. And you'll see a lot of these pictures are not of him. They have other martial artists who are better at doing the techniques, the karate techniques. But you will see him in some of these. Here is Bruce right there. So he is a real pioneer in the martial arts. He wasn't a fraud. He may have been controversial, but that's not being a fraud. He basically grew up in the martial arts, especially the grappling arts. And he also got a black belt in karate, studied various styles, and then tried to give the average person as much information about them as possible through these books. They were actually quite inexpensive for the time, but the binding is good. The paper was good. I mean, I've had this one here. I don't know. I got it in the mid '80s, I think. I've had it 40 years or so, and I don't read it a lot. I've read it a couple times and gone through it, and he actually has a person in a Kung Fu uniform here. But in any case, the books he did helped paved a way for the books we have today. I'd venture to say even helped pave the way for instructional videos today, because we had the books first. His choreography for Frank Sinatra. A lot of people today don't realize how big of a star Frank Sinatra was. At that time period, he would be like our Tom Cruise to this day. To do something like that and produce that fight scene for that movie gave that pebble in that shoe for other fight choreography in future movies, and for producers to be looking out for something like that, because it was considered exciting at the time. Think about him appearing on the Ozzie and Harriet show, which was a popular show with Ricky Nelson, who would become a pop singer and very, very popular singer. How many young boys and girls were watching that going, wow, and it inspired them to take the martial arts, or to keep it in the back of their mind when they got old enough or into an area where they could take the martial arts. Because back then, there wasn't a dojo in every corner like you see today. That is what a pioneer does. A pioneer does something that sets the stage for others to follow. And this is exactly why I've chosen Bruce Tegner to be, in the very first episode of Pioneers of the Martial Arts. He had set the stage for so many others in the United States to follow. Now, is he the greatest of all the pioneers? No, he's not. And we will talk about more pioneers as I develop more videos. But he is an important one, particularly for those in the United States, and I dare say Canada. He had a big influence in Canada as well. Well, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. And if you ever get a chance and you're at like a half-price books or an independent bookstore and you see a Bruce Tegner book, you may just want to buy it for posterity's sake. Thank you. Bye-bye. Us.